Okay, I wanted to show you guys how I cut the little pieces of garland into the size that we did. So I just set up the bandsaw here, and we just had this piece of metal, just a piece of angle iron, and I used that. If you don't have that, you can just use a piece of wood. And then we went ahead and just C-clamped that right onto the base of our bandsaw there. Decided how thick we wanted the wood to be cut, and then we clamped that on there. And then I could go ahead and just run the logs right through. So once the blade is going, you'll just run your log right through there, and it'll cut it, and you can just kind of keep doing that. This is about how much was left on each one, just because I want to save my fingers and didn't want to get hurt doing it. So also, when you have knots like this, you want to make sure that you're kind of determining where you want your wood to cut. So this is a nice place to lay. You wouldn't want to cut it like that. It's just a little too wobbly. So you want to find the flat spot on the wood and go ahead and just run each log through, find some sort of guard and set that up, and then you can just keep running your logs right through your bandsaw and get nice, clean, same thickness pieces for your garland. So that's the first step. And then our next step is to drill the holes in them. So I just went ahead and picked a drill bit that would work with a string. This is the string that I found that I really liked the look of. I thought that was a nice thickness to make the garland out of. And I tried to use a drill bit that was very close in size to that, because the tighter that you can get your string into these holes when you're stringing the garland up, the better that the garland's going to stay when it's hanging, and the less that these are going to move up and down the string. So that's why I chose this bit. It's a smaller one, but then I went ahead and just went in and drilled 2 holes on the top of every one. So, you kind of turn it and decide which side you want to be the top of it, and go in and go ahead and just drill all the holes in them. So find an old board. Make sure you're drilling into a board so you're not drilling into your countertop. And then just go ahead and put 2 holes in the top of each one. That's the second step. Okay, this is the part that's a little bit time consuming and a little bit tricky, but what I'm going to do is just pull out the string and pull out a pretty good amount of it, because I'm going to be sliding these pieces all the way down to the end of the string. So that's probably about right for one of the words for garland. And then what I've done, and there's lots of different ways that you can do this to make the end so it doesn't fray if you would try to actually feed this through here, you're going to end up with fraying. You're going to have to keep cutting it off. It doesn't work really well. So what I found to be the best for me is just to use some blue painter's tape and just take a little piece. Sorry, I have to find my scissors back. There we go. So I'm just cutting off a little piece of this blue painter's tape, and then it's a little bit tricky, but this is kind of the best way I found to make it nice and tight. Because I made those holes so small, I have to make sure that this is in there really, really well and wrapped really tight. So I'm just laying my string across the very edge of that tape and then rolling it as tightly as I can so that it will still fit through that hole. So this is kind of the system I found that worked the best to get a nice edge on the string so that it will feed through the holes okay. And then you don't want to keep wrapping too many times or it'll get too thick and then it won't fit through either. So I'm just going to stop about there. And then I'm also going to cut the very tip off of it. So then I have a nice end to feed through the end of the hole. So I laid these out into piles. So this is Christmas and this is Merry. So Merry Christmas. And then I'm just working my way down, and you'll feed it from the back going through. There, that one was not even quite tight. You can see you have to really finagle that tape a little bit to get it nice and tight. If you have trouble with it also, you can use a toothpick and push this through from the backside with a toothpick, or if your blue tape is too short that you can't grab a hold of it, you can always poke it through with a toothpick. So that's what you do, is just go ahead and feed this tape and the string through each one, and then you want to move it all the way down on the garland. So just feed that garland all the way through so you have plenty of excess, because again, this is the whole word Christmas, so there's a lot of string going all the way across there, so you want to make sure that you have enough so you don't have to, because these don't just, you know, once you hang there, once you get it through there, it does just kind of stay on there by itself. So once you've got that in there, you're going to have to kind of walk everyone through again. So if you move it all the way down, you may be a little bit wasteful on the string when you're done, but better than having to move each piece all over again every time you put another one on. So I'm going to show you kind of how to space it. I mean, you can space it however you want. Obviously, if you have a bigger space, you know, like a larger mantle or something, and you want to fill a larger space with these, you could either A, use larger logs, or you could leave a little more string in between. But the way I kind of liked the look when it was done was to have probably about an inch in between each one. So then I just adjust that until it's about where it needs to be on the string. So that's kind of about the right distance, and that's how I've kind of been doing all of them. So I thought that was pretty good. And then you just keep going with your entire stack until you get them all strung through there. And that is our step number 3. And then once you get them, so I did it separately. I put Christmas, Merry, M-E-R-R-Y, all on one string, and then Christmas all spelled out on the next line. So I had them in 2 different pieces of garland because I wanted to hang them on top of each other. So that's just kind of how, there you can see it kind of gets stuck once that tape, if it's not rolled really tightly. If that happens and you hate it, just start over. Just get a new piece of tape and do it again, because clearly this one is not rolled tight enough. And if you're going to be fighting it the whole time, it's really not worth it. Just cut another one. Or if you don't want to drill your holes so small, you can just make bigger holes to begin with too, and then you wouldn't be fighting it either. But I'll hold this up here, and you can see that it really doesn't move. So that was why I liked this size hole, because it stays on there pretty good, and they stay right in place. So really it doesn't move down the line at all once you get them on here. So that's step number 3. Just once you get all those strung along there, then you'll just go back in and cut your tape off, and then cut enough on this end so you've got about the same amount coming off this end, and go ahead and cut that. And then I found to stack them, I just kind of stacked all of them up and laid them into a bag. So I just put them into Ziploc bags like that. It was a nice way to store them until I get the stamps out, and then we'll go ahead and stamp all the words on them. So that's the next step. Okay, we're on to our last step. So we cut out our logs, and then we got the holes drilled and added all of our string. And then I put them into baggies. It was easier to store it, and the string didn't get quite as tangled up, so I thought that worked out pretty well to just store each set in the bag. So we have them all strung up, and then we will go ahead and lay them out, and then we're going to stamp all of the lettering on it. So what I found were this stamp set, actually I got at Hobby Lobby, and I either got it when the stamp sets were 50% off, or I did it when it was when I used a 40% off coupon at Hobby Lobby. So either way, it wasn't too expensive for the stamp set. I do tend to like to use stamps just because I don't have to do hand lettering. Lots of times I find myself when I do hand lettering getting frustrated and upset, and I don't love the way it turns out, and then I'm starting over. And so stamps just work out really well, especially when you pick a really whimsical font. This is just a good one for me because you don't have to be perfect on it. As you can see where I did some of the other ones, you just kind of put it where you think it looks centered, and you just don't have to be really particular on it. So that's what I like about picking a more whimsical font when I pick out my stamps. If you guys don't want to use stamps when you're doing this, you can just write your letters on it and you know, do it with pencil first if you want to. You can paint it, or you could use a paint pen or marker or whatever you can find and whatever you like. For this, I am just using just standard ink, so it works out pretty well on these birch logs. I did dry these logs. They were dried out for quite a while, so they definitely are not wet lumber, which is really nice, especially when stamping. They're completely dry and they're not going to shrink, and so you do want to make sure that you do that when you're using different logs. I wouldn't recommend just picking them up out of the yard and cutting them right away. Either you could dry them in the oven or kiln dry them, or just let them sit for a little while. Or find ones that already have been dried. So actually you can also buy little rounds like this at Hobby Lobby, and they just sell them in packages. And then you could start from there, especially if you don't have a saw. That would be a great way to be able to still use these and do these and not cut your own discs, but you could just buy little bags of these at Hobby Lobby and then drill the holes and start from there. So that's it. I'm just stamping each of the letters on here. I have just a paper towel. When you guys stamp, I don't know if you do that. It works pretty well instead of going running back and forth to the sink all the time, just to stamp and then wipe your stamp off. So I am making sure that I just lay it out in the way that I want it to. We're gonna write Merry Christmas on it. So for the M, I'm gonna use the M in Merry, and then also in MAS. So right here we're gonna use it. So I just clean my stamp. We'll just go through and put all of the stamps on these. It's a pretty simple process. It's quite easy, and you don't have to be too particular with it, but it still has a great look when it's all done, and super festive and really inexpensive. I think that's why I'm loving these this year. And there you can see on that one, I don't know if you can see on that for sure, where I got on the stamp, there is ink on the edge, and so it's a good idea to wipe that off so you don't get that little extra run on there. After you put it on the ink pad, just wipe off that corner. So when you go to stamp it on the next one, you're not going to end up with that excess. So M-E-R-R and then C-H-R. So our R is going to go right here then. So a few of the letters we reuse on here, but this is it, guys. It was super simple. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and that if you guys decide to do this, I'd love to see them. You could mix it up and use, you know, write different things on it. Use it for Christmas. You could always use it for any time outside of Christmas too. It wouldn't just have to necessarily be just for Christmas. They'd be great for a winter garland also, and not just a Christmas garland. Or if you just have a few logs that you like and want to write a shorter word, do Noel or something like that. So C-H, where's our 8? There it is. All right, nothing exciting here, but just wanted to show you the last step on this, and then you'll have your garland to put up. So it's fun, it's festive, it's relatively easy. Cutting the logs, I would say, is probably just the hardest part, to make sure that you get that right. And just be careful when you guys are using your saws. Be safe. Make sure that guard is up and you've got your safety glasses on. I'm not always the best for following the rules, but I'll tell you how that's supposed to be done. All right. There's lots of different stamp sets that you can get and sizes that you can get, different fonts, so they're all over. Hobby Lobby's got some stamps, Michael's has stamps. I know you can get a lot of different kinds online, so just make sure you're using your coupons and getting the sales, and I hope you guys have fun doing this project. That is it. That is all there is to it, and there you have a really fun Merry Christmas garland. So if you guys happen to make these at home, let me know and send some pictures our way. We'd love to see them. Thanks a lot for joining along.